Hey guys, it's JP, and today we are going to take a look at the role of the quadriceps during running, as well as some exercises that target them to help improve the way you run. This is going to be an interesting topic, as there are some misconceptions about the quads during running, so hopefully we'll be able to clear some things up so you get a better understanding of how they work. Now let's get straight into the video. Before we get into the exercises, it is really important to understand what the quadriceps do as you run. First, I'll give you a quick crash course on their general function. The quadriceps are basically a group of 4 muscles that attach to the kneecap, otherwise known as the patella. For muscles, you'll need a second attachment point, and this is where it gets a little different. To make it simple, 3 of the muscles attach to the top of the thigh bone, otherwise known as the femur. This means that when the muscles contract and shorten, they serve to straighten out the knee. The other muscle, known as the rectus femoris, attaches to the ilium, which is the top of the pelvis. Being attached to this area allows it to not only straighten out the knee like the other 3 muscles, but also bring the thigh forward, which is also known as hip flexion. In summary, the general function of the quads as they contract is to straighten out the knee and aid in bringing the thigh forward. Now, how does this apply to running? Well, during running, the quadriceps are active as the foot pushes against the ground, bringing the leg forward during the swing phase, and also supporting the leg during the early stance phase of running. First, let's talk more about what happens during the push-off phase, as this is where some misconceptions are seen. The quads tend to get a bad reputation in running due to the emphasis on using the glutes instead of the quads during the push-off phase. While it is important to drive from the hips, as I mentioned in a previous video, the quads still play an important role during this phase as they act to produce a force directed upward. Of course, relying too much on the quads, which is basically from placing emphasis on straightening the knees in push-off, would result in more vertical bounce. This would lead to excessive vertical force applied to the foot during landing, which is not so good in terms of running forward. However, without an adequate amount of vertical force generated, which is primarily produced from these muscles, you may end up tripping over your own feet. While this shows one of the reasons why the quads are important, this is actually not the phase where the quads have the most impact in the running cycle. Based on some research, the quadriceps actually contribute the most during the early stance phase of running. This basically takes place right after foot landing as the foot transitions under the body. As the foot makes contact with the ground, it is important to recognize that a lot of downward force is being applied to the leg. During this phase, the quads counteract this force and contribute the most to support the leg to prevent the knee from collapsing. This is why it's important to incorporate a strengthening program that involves the quads, as the demands on these muscles only increase as you run faster and longer. Now that we covered that, let's go over some exercises that involve strengthening the quads so these muscles can effectively support the leg from the tremendous demands required during running. Again, I collaborated with District Track Club to make these videos for you guys. The first exercise I will be showing you is the forward lunge. This is a simple exercise that requires no equipment to help you strengthen the quads. First, you start in this position. Make sure to maintain an upright torso throughout the movement. Then, bring the lead foot forward so your knee bends to about 90 degrees. Then slowly lower the back knee to the ground. After that occurs, quickly bring yourself up into this position, then repeat the movement again. I love the lunge because it has many different variations, such as the reverse lunge, as this helps target and load different muscles and joints as desired. However, I'll probably explain those variations in more detail in a video in the future. The next exercise is a step up. This is a staple exercise used to load the quads. All you need is something to step onto, like a stepping stool, a step on the stairs, and even a curb. Remember that the higher the surface, the harder the exercise will be, so I would try to start low and progress up as you get stronger and better at the exercise. Anyway, as you perform this exercise, try to keep an upright trunk. This will help target both the glutes and the quads in a similar movement pattern seen during running. Now, as you step up, drive the lead foot down so you go straight up. However, moving on to this frame, try not to use the leg on the floor to assist you as seen here. If you see this, I'd recommend trying to use a lower surface. Now, while this is called a step up, it is also important to focus on the descent from the step, as this works on eccentric quad control, which is essential during the early stance phase of running. Try to maintain a controlled descent onto the floor. I recommend you try to maintain this for at least the first 30 degrees of knee bending, as that is similar to what is needed as you run. The third exercise is the squats. This is another staple exercise that is also involved in general strengthening programs. Kettlebells are used here, however, squats utilizing the barbell is also recommended if you have the equipment available. Now, you start in this position. Keep your feet around shoulder width apart with your knees facing forward. Then, lower the body in a controlled manner. As you lower, pay attention to the knees to make sure they don't collapse inward. Just looking at this frame, I'd also recommend going a little lower than this to at least 90 degrees to load the muscles nicely. Then, return straight up. Now to further progress this, you can change the weights that are being carried, or if you want, you can make this more specific to running, as you can add variations like the split squat or single leg squat. Again, you won't see those in this video, but maybe I'll make a video that looks at these variations in more detail in the future. And those are some exercises you can try to load the quads. I hope you guys were able to learn more about the quads and how they relate to running. Let me know what you guys thought about the video, as well as any feedback you have for future videos. Anyway, as always, thank you for watching.